Hello everyone and welcome on De Papier de Rêve channel. I'm Ursula and today I will be painting with you some California poppies. I'm growing a bunch of flowers on my balcony in Barcelona, and this year I have some California poppies coming out and I wanted to paint them because I love their color and I think they are a really pretty flower with a lot of fragility into it, but also they look quite strong and fierce in these bold colors. I'm starting this painting on a rough paper, 100% cotton. It's from Arches, and I'm starting with Aussie red gold as the color and this big flat brush. And I just throw some color on my paper. I'm not caring too much of positioning right now. I just want the top of my paper to be really yellow and with strong colors on it. I'm mostly using Aussie red gold, but I'm also adding a little bit of nickel azo yellow on the top of the paper in order to have some different tones of yellow in this area. And where I apply the strongest color of Aussie red gold, it's where I want my poppies to be on the paper. And it's just these details for now. I do not want to add too much right now because my paper is wet where I put some color. So every color will blend so that there is no time for details right now. I just want to have an impression of poppies right now, and details will come a bit later. And now that I'm quite happy with the top part of my painting, I want to work a little bit the bottom part with some foliage here. And again, there will be no details in this first step. I just want to put some colors into the background. I'm working the bigger shape right now, and details will come a bit later. For this green, I'm using Indanthrene blue and nickel azo yellow. Sometimes I will add a little bit of Aussie red gold, and sometimes I will add a little bit of transparent red oxide in order to have different tones of green in this area. And each time I'm going back to my palette to pick up some color, I will change the color a little bit. Sometimes it will be a little bit more blue, sometimes it will be a little bit more yellow, and sometimes it will be a little bit more brown. So right now all my paper is really wet and everything is really blurry, but I want to pick this brush that is a little bit more fine than the other. It's still a flat brush, but it's a little bit tinier, so I can just pick up some color with just a rinse brush and a little bit more dry. I can pick up the color I think that is too much in some area, and just create some shape that way by taking out some colors. And as my paper is quite wet, it's a perfect moment to just create some shape by taking some color out, but also creating some shape by adding a little bit more color, because my paper is, yes, wet, but not as wet as the beginning. It has dry a little bit, so every color I will put on my paper will blend, but a little bit less than before. So I can have an idea of some details in some area. I'm adding some Aussie red gold in the base of the flower, and I'm also adding a little bit more nickel azo yellow in the top of the flower in order to create some shape and trying to construct the shape bit by bit, step by step. I'm doing this for the flower, but I will do the same thing in the foliage area. I'm adding some darker green in this area, and I try to achieve some brush marks on this area in order to create some texture right away before letting this totally dry. As you can see, Even if my paper is wet, the brush marks are staying quite in the right area, and it creates some marks. I want to work just a little bit more before letting this layer dry. I want to add some just droplets of granulation medium on my paper so that I can create a little bit more texture in the green area of my paper. So I'm adding some droplets of granulation medium, and then I will move my paper a little bit so that the granulation medium can move also a little bit, and it will create some granulating effect that way. It's always a good thing to move your paper when you are using granulation medium, because it needs some movement to be really activated. And now I will let you enjoy this part of the video with some music, and I will come back a little bit later with more details. I'm starting this second layer by adding some details into the poppies, and for that I'm using this dagger brush that is very fine and has quite a long hair, so I can have some really fine line with it, but I can also be a little bit bolder by using the length of the brush and the side of the brush to make some marks. For the colors here, I'm still using Aussie red gold for the base of the poppies. I think it is the perfect fiery color for the poppies, and it's working really well. I'm adding some stems to the poppies with a mix of Indanthrene blue and a little bit of Aussie red gold or nickel as a yellow. I like to use both into the green so that I can get some green green that is a little bit more dull than a mix of green really vibrant. I really like to add the stems of the flower before the flower has had time to dry completely, because in this way you can see that the green of the stem can blend a little bit into the flower, and I think it's working great to attach the flower and the petals of the flower to the stem and make it a little bit more grounded. For now, I have painted the poppy in a positive way, so I'm painting the subject before by adding some darker color into the poppies. But right now I want to have some negative paintings into this watercolor because I think it's a great way to just make some shape appear on the paper and make things a little bit more delicate. So for the negative painting, I'm using just a nickel azure yellow, and I will paint around the shape I want to just bring a little bit more together. I'm adding quite a lot of pigment right there, and then I will rinse my brush a little bit and just try to make the color blend a little bit into the background, and I want to drag it a little bit to the top of my paper. And I'm not trying to have the perfect gradient with this technique. I try to have my brush a little bit on the dry side so that I can have those dry brush marks that I like, and I think it helps a little bit to make the gradient appear in some way, but it's a little bit also more natural, and it has a little bit of texture that is very interesting. If you have some difficulties with making some gradients in watercolor, here you can totally wet the entire area where you want to have this gradient, and just add some dots of color at the base of your gradient, and let just the color flow into the top, and it will create a gradient quite naturally. And even if it's not going all the way up to the top of the page, it will be very soft, and it should work quite nicely. So now I want to add some details into the green area of my paper. I want to add some leaves and stems for this poppy, and I try to just work my way through that just bunch of stems and foliage quite slowly. I'm working with this dagger shape that is really a perfect brush for making some fine lines and take a little bit more random into the paper. And if I want my brush marks to be really random and have this really natural feel, I will just take my brush further away from the ears I can possibly, so that I will have really no control at all on my brush, and it will create some really beautiful marks that way. And if I want some more control into my brush, for example, painting the poppy bud, I need some more control into my brush at that moment, because I want the shape to be in a certain way. So right at this time, I will just hold my brush a little bit near the hair of the brush, and I will have more control on my brush. And in the same way as the first layer, I will just change a little bit my mix of green each time I'm going back into my palette. Sometimes it will be a little bit more blue, sometimes it will be a little bit more yellow, and sometimes also it can be a little bit lighter because I have more water on my brush, and sometimes it will be a little bit darker because I have less water on my brush. I try to have some quite different tones in this area because it will make things a little bit more interesting that way. I also like a lot to add some patches of brown color into my flower painting, just because I think it can bring the color a little bit more vibrant because it's a little bit duller area, so that the poppy will appear a little bit more brighter if there is some duller area near to them. But also, the brown I'm using today is transparent red oxide, and it has quite a warm touch to it, so that it responds quite well with the Aussie red gold of the poppy. It makes the painting a little bit more warm at the bottom because the green I'm using are a little bit cold. So just adding this step of brown into this area add just the touch of warmth that will go well with the poppies. My painting right now is almost finished. I want to add some just darker details into some areas, and for that I'm using quite a dark green by mixing a little bit more Indanthrene blue with nickel as a yellow and of course less water, and I will just paint some area with this darker color. My poppies are quite dry for now, so I am not afraid that the color will blend too much into the petal, but this just tiny dot of dark will make the poppy even brighter. And this video is now ending. Thanks for watching and I hope you like it. Please check the blog post for more information about it and tell me what you think in the comments. See you soon.